Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming back. This is the follow-up to what was a really, really wonderful 3 days spent with you all. And thankfully, we were so graced to have Linda and Bill join us. It was absolutely fantastic. And my sister, I don't know what the hell she's at. I hope she comes. But just thank you so much. I just want to say something before we get cracking. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to every single one of you. I think it was Dan asked me, Dave, what have you got from this retreat? And I'll tell you what I got from that retreat. I'll tell you what I got. I got a newfound inspiration for my work, which I needed, which I really, really needed. I feel inspired. I feel like when I first came across this and I wanted to share it with people. And I think having Lucia and stuff like that has been, it's been my attention's been elsewhere. And perhaps it has been from before that, if I'm honest. But I just want to say thank you. I've been making some videos now that I'm just going to put out for people. I just want to be of service. And that was the thing that came to me the other day, like, how can I be more of service? So we put it out to the WhatsApp group, and the responses have been wonderful. We've had some amazing ideas come back. So Jenny and I just want to be of service. We want to help. And you lot, specifically you lot, every single one of you has helped to inspire Jenny and I to really feel our work again. And that feels so beautiful and it's so exciting. So exciting. So thank you. Big thank you from both of us. Linda, thank you so much for coming back. Thanks for even coming back. You must be mental. But thank you, love. Thank you for coming back. We don't have any plans. We just thought it'd be nice to just open this up to everybody and see who wants to say what and see what you've got to say about it. And yeah, we'd just like to hand this over to you now, love, and you go for it.
All right. Well, so I listened to my talk to you a couple times, actually, which was really interesting because I don't usually do that. It's really hard to find time to do that. But I listened to it twice, and I was like, wow, I'm learning from my own self. That's pretty cool. And then I listened to Bill's talk. Unfortunately, for some reason, the recording I had, it cut off in the questions, so I didn't get all of the questions in. But I did listen to his talk, and I thought it was just beautiful that he was so present and quiet. And my lovely Billy Willie at his best. So I was really touched by that. And I did want to say that although my work recently has been more with coaches and people who are building practices, or whatever you want to call it, sharing this understanding as coaches and as helping professionals, that I do have a 35-year career in mental health, and that the vast majority of my time over the last 20 years, up until the last 5 years, and then 15 years before that, was in working with people every single day who were struggling with depression and anxiety and all the different things that we classify as mental health disorders in the mental health world. So I have a wide variety of experiences in those areas. And the three principles understanding absolutely transformed the work I did there, and most importantly, the results that people got from it. So I'm totally comfortable with going in any direction that anyone wants to go. Bill, I was struck that Bill talked about that his personal experience was with depression, and my personal experience was more with anxiety. I wasn't a terribly depressed individual, but I had a tremendous amount of anxiety, and those two can go hand in hand, because when your anxiety gets out of control and you get panicky, it's really easy to also tip into depression and agitated depression. So I know those things. And then the other area where I just have a lot of personal experience and a lot of experience at working with people is with loss. Coming back after difficult and sometimes even catastrophic loss. And I love that work, just love that work. And years ago, as a psychologist, I had this thought that just about everyone who landed in my office with depression or anxiety or something, that the issue underlying it all was loss. Every single human being, the issue underlying it was loss, because people have experiences of feeling cut off from their true self. And because of something external that happens, and then they start thinking about it, and the cutoff just feels like it grows and grows and grows. And then we call that depression, and we call it anxiety, we call it lots of other names. But fundamentally, what happens is that people get cut off from their true natures and experience a disconnection from their true natures. And then we call that mental illness. So I love thinking about it that way. And it really helped me to help people to think about it that way. So yeah, I just wanted to share that I'm open to conversation about anything that's on your mind coming out of the retreat experience. So I'm just here to take questions or comments or feedback, and I'll share from there and invite your sharing from there, and we'll see where this goes. I have about an hour before my 4-year-old and 6-year-old grandsons come to spend about 3 hours with me. So that's always a big part of my Sunday, that I give my daughter and her husband couples time. And I get to have the little boys all to myself. Colin,
Go on, Col.
I think you'll need to unmute yourself.
You were right. It's something that you said on the Saturday, Linda, about creating your own reality, and I've kept on remembering that sort of sank in, and then Bill mentioned an author, and I'm not sure how you pronounce her first name, but it's spelled Chana, then Studley.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the titles that he mentioned struck a chord with me, and I started reading it, and it's about the 3 principles gelled in with an American doctor from New York from the 70s, a Dr. Sarno. And
right.
he was making breakthrough discoveries about chronic pain. So when you'd mentioned creating your own reality, it's a bit ironic that Catherine already has a few times. I mean, I won't go into that, because I want to focus on this, that I want to try using my own wisdom now to create my own reality without chronic pain, or more rounded, create my own reality without any health issues. And that's it. I just wondered if perhaps you could talk about that, what you mentioned about creating your own reality a little more, please.
Yeah, I can talk about that. But let me say this about the connection between the body and the mind and the spirit. I generally, as a sharer, don't go in that direction. That's an area to me of great mystery. And I want to tell you a little story about Sydney Banks. So he's the man who brought us this wonderful understanding. And the last time I saw him alive, he was suffering with advanced cancer that by that time had metastasized through his whole body and into his brain. And he was pretty frail. He was pretty weak. And he, I actually hugged him right outside the door of the room as he was going in, and put his arms around me, and I was just struck by how frail he was. And I said, "Oh, Sid, how are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm tired, Linda. I'm really, really tired. I'm really tired. And then he was like really having me in this bear hug. And then he spoke into my ear and he said, and you know, they're giving me these big horse pills to take, and they're a real pain in the ass. Well, that was funny because he had rectal cancer.
Hmm.
And the two of us were just sort of like, because I got the pun, right? We're both laughing. But I remember thinking, how is this man going to talk about, how is he going to be on stage for 2 hours when he's obviously not in great health? He was gray. So he gets on the stage and he's kind of bent over, and then he gets up to teach. He gets present. He gets up to teach. He actually stood for a while and then sat down and then stood for a while more. And for 2 hours, the power that emanated from that man was undescribable. Undescribable. And he was at his best. And I was just blown away. Well, at one point, there was a man in the audience. He's since passed on as well. His name is Scotty Rebholz, who was a loved Sid and had been in the Three Principles world for some 35, 40 years. And he stood up and he said, Sid, can you talk to us about physical healing? And Sid said, no, absolutely not. I'm here to talk about psychological healing. And that was it. He left it there. And so what I took from that, so I'm gonna tell one little more story and then I'll tie it up. When Bill's wife, Sue, died, of course, I wasn't there. I wasn't on the scene yet, but I have heard the story from many people. She also had metastatic cancer. They don't even know where her original tumor was in her body, but by the time they discovered it, it went all through her body system. And she was in a lot of pain. She was in a lot of distress. But the story is told that nurses from other floors in the hospital would come to her room to be around her energy because it was so healing. She was just at such peace. And I think personally that that's what Sydney Banks was trying to point to when he said, I don't talk about physical healing. I think he was trying to say that, all of us are going to die. And all of us are going to die with some kind of, either we're going to have an accident or we're going to get sick, or our hearts are going to stop, or whatever. Something in the body is going to give out, and we're probably, most of us, going to experience some degree of discomfort with that. But it's possible to be at deep peace even in that experience. And that was what Sid was trying to point to. And what I think Bill tries to point to, and he's much more courageous than I am in talking about the body, mind, spirit connection. I think what Bill's trying to point to is you can have experiences of physical pain or distress or illness, but if you can connect with your true nature, your experience of that is going to be a whole lot gentler, and you probably are going to experience a significant amount of, or significantly less amount of physical pain. Now, when Bill over the last couple months was in pain with his hip, he was just in pain. So there was one, there was, and the point to us of what that experience was about is that he moved through it without suffering. There was pain, but there wasn't psychological suffering with that. And he did have moments of it. He did have, at least that I can remember, 3 moments where his psychological suffering of the pain got pretty intense. And I just held him. And then he would find his way back to, and he said to me at one point, the one thing that would keep me together, that kept me going when I had those moments when it just got really intense, was that I kept knowing that God was benevolent. I could feel God's benevolence, and that got me through. So another short story. During the pandemic, I was going through something. People were going through all these illnesses, right? And Bill and I got really sick. We didn't have COVID during that time, but we got sick with something else. And we were sick, both of us, for a month. It was some kind. It might have even been early COVID. Who knows? But someone who had been very, 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 very close to Sid, in the inner circle, the tight inner circle, reached out to me during that time and said, "Linda, may I share a story with you?" And I said, yes. So she phoned me up and we talked, and she talked about how when her daughter was young, very young, she developed a disorder that was a seizure disorder, very severe seizure disorder. And she talked about how this was a very young child, and she talked about how she was just distraught over this and very worried about her daughter and about her experience with this seizure disorder that appeared like it was going to be lifelong, because it usually is. And Sid somehow found out about it, just found out about it, and came to see her and talked with her. And he said to her, one of the things I need you to do with your daughter is to look past the illness, because that's just a phenomenon of nature. Look past the illness to the superconscious. See the superconscious. Be connected to the superconscious. Respond to her only from the superconscious. And this woman said something about that shifted. It was like, oh yeah, I've been seeing my daughter as sick. I've been responding to her as sick. I've been responding to her illness. And she just stopped that. Also, Sid said to her, because she had a question, she said to Sid, they're putting her on all these medicines, these really strong medicines for a little girl to be on. And Sid said to her, oh my dearie, I can just hear his voice. Oh my dearie, don't be frightened by that. The pill is God too. The pill is God too. And then he said, just keep talking to the superconscious, and miracles can happen. And your daughter will know when she no longer needs the medicine. So sure enough, that's what happened. It took months, but this little girl one day said to her mother, Mama, I don't need the medicines anymore. And she didn't. She was healed of the epileptic disorder. So to me, I mean, what that says is, yes, it is possible. It is very possible to connect miraculously with the God consciousness or the super consciousness or mind or love or whatever you want to call that. And when we do that, many of us may experience extraordinary things that we call miracles. One of my prayers every day is, I am radiant health, trim, fit, and curvy. I am radiant health, trim, fit, and curvy. And if I had a COVID and a flu vaccine 2 days ago, Friday. And yesterday afternoon, for about 3 hours, I wasn't feeling well. I've had COVID reactions to the COVID shots every time I've had them. This one was very mild. But as I felt the virus in my body, and I just almost feel the body, you know, it's the reaction, the antibodies fighting that and rising. It was interesting. I just kept reminding myself that I was radiant health. I was radiant health, radiant health. That is my true nature. God does not know sickness. I am radiant health. And so if I had a thought like, oh, I feel terrible, I don't court that kind of thought. I go back to, I am radiant health. I declare my true nature. And I think many times that has helped me avoid experiences of illness, or softened my experience of illness. But when I do get sick, I don't like beat myself up about that. It's more of, well, it's just a process. You know, nature's a process. There's this thing that's dancing through my system. But I am radiant health. My true nature is radiant health. And do I know that miracles can occur in that state? Yeah. Do I fully understand the mystery of why they sometimes don't? You know, why did Sid get cancer? Why did he have pain in his body? Why did he have metastatic cancer? I think, frankly, this is my take on it, Linda Pettit's take, he was ready to go home. He was so ready to go home. He had no interest in fighting that. No interest. He was ready. And so he left us. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope you found something in it. And if there's a follow-up question, let me know.
I have, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
May I just, and alongside that, what I heard in your question, I kind of heard a separation in your question just then, Col. I almost got the impression that when you said that Catherine has created her reality, manifested her reality 2 or 3 times, and you were going to start to manifest your reality, I feel like you may be looking at an aspect of the story of life, for want of a better word at this present moment. I haven't got one. Almost like manifestation. I feel like you're talking about manifestation, which I'm not averse to personally. I'm very much versed to it, to be perfectly honest. But I feel like quite often people can get mistaken the principles for something like The Secret, the message of the principles for the message of The Secret. And quite often these people tangle the two up. And it's not to say that they're separate, because they're not really, in my opinion, they're not separate. But I want to point to something even more amazing than the fact of manifestation, that perhaps we have this gift that we can manifest perfect health, or perhaps we have the ability to manifest our perfect job, or whatever the hell it be, the money, whatever it wants to be. I mean, that's amazing. And I personally have manifested many things in my life, and every time it's happened, I'm like, well, fuck me, that was amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but there was something more amazing that took place in my life. And it was the realization that I am manifesting this experience right now. I am somehow, I am creating this experiential event that I call my life. Now, any physical manifestation of money or anything like that has to be secondary to that marvelous point that I am creating this experience of life right now due to some fundamental law principles. That to me is a more magical, God-connecting, inspiring point to become aware of, rather than us just thinking that when we're manifesting reality, we're manifesting outside of ourselves. No, we're manifesting within ourselves this very inexplicable phenomena that I call life. That's what Sid was pointing to. He was pointing to this now. This very much, this. Not something that's going to take place in the future. He's pointing to the now and the very fact of existence due to spiritual principles, which we all are. That's our nature. But then I just also wanted to share something. When we had a, did you see Godel on the at the conference by any chance? Did anybody see Godel speak at the last conference? Maybe it's conference before. It was a fellow we worked with in South Africa. He spoke at the conference. I think it was the year before last, actually. But he had such a shift. He had such a shift. He found God again, and as a man who was a Catholic who had fallen out of love with God because he'd become paralyzed from the waist down, and he was told he couldn't. He was training to be a Catholic priest. Actually, no. What's above a Catholic priest? So, Linda, sorry, love.
You have to be a priest for a while to get to the next level, which is a bishop.
It was something. He was training. He was a monk anyway. And,
okay, that's.
Yeah, and he broke his back, and he was told he couldn't share the word of God, so he fell out with God. And all of a sudden, his words to us after the thing, he said, "Can I speak to you?" He said, "I feel so amazing. I feel so alive." We recorded it. It's out on the internet. He said, "I found God." He said, "I always thought God was out there judging me looking back." He said, "But I've since discovered that somehow I am that God that I have always feared. And now I'm at peace," he said. It's on the internet anyway. But one of the things he did say, he said, "I'm going to learn to walk." He hadn't walked since he was a teenager. I think he's my age. I think he's 43. And 3 years ago, he sent us a video of him walking with a Zimmer frame. He hasn't walked in about half his life. And he started walking. And he said, and he was told he'd never have children. And he said, "No, I will have children." He had children. You know, we are miraculous beings of infinite potential. I don't know. But like Linda, I don't know why we get ill. I don't know what lessons we learn through it. I don't know. I just think we're phenomenal. But I just wanted to make that distinction because I felt like you'd separated, you'd created an idea or an idea of what the principles is pointing to. It's pointing to the wholeness of everythingness. And it just so happens to be coursing through us. We are it. I'm going to shut up and let somebody else speak.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And it comes back to that, what I talked about the first time, that if I'm creating from stillness, then that energy that we all kind of try to point to, that Dave so beautifully points to in his words of life coming through us, is available to us to create in ways that we can only scratch the surface of. So I love the way you said that last time, Dave, that, no matter how much we try to plumb the beauty of what mind, thought, and consciousness are, we can only scratch the surface. But that's what makes it fun.
Isn't that the gift of life? Wow. Love it. Marie has a comment. Marie can't speak. Can you speak, Marie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. Hi, everyone. So listening to you, it comes to me, it's maybe related or not, but in what you're saying, since January when we did our intensive with you, Dave and Jen, it seems like Lisa really words it well for me, and she says life lives you, lives the trees, lives things. And I've had different situations in my life that I can relate to what Colin's saying. And this life living me in the now is almost like an invisible journey, like an invisible hand that is just making decisions for me. And if I resist trying to control those decisions and just let them be, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but things seem to go well and things seem to drop away. I seem to be present much more, much quicker. If I get a mind storm, like a storm of ideas, they fall away quicker. I find myself present much quicker. And it's the being in the now, the connectedness of that, what's living me, and not entirely forcing myself to. It's kind of just there now. It's like this beautiful little journey is just happening, and things just keep. You did something a minute ago, Dave, and you were like, and it just happens. Like life just seems to happen for me now. Nothing is a struggle. And I really, truly, deeply believe what Linda was saying about Sid being ill and just letting go and being able to live through that. You will have the pain, of course you will, but it's literally the mindset within that frees you from it, if you know what I mean. I've had similar things where I'm in it, I definitely can feel it, but my mind is just in, I don't know, in love. It's not connected. I don't know. Do you understand that at all? I'm not sure.
What I loved was just the feeling in it, the feeling of ease and relaxation and peacefulness about just letting life come through you. It was very, very beautiful. Love the feeling.
I think it's what people call faith, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful to live your life with faith. But when you start to see that spiritual nature of life, it starts to become illogical to not. But I do think it's fascinating how much of humanity believes so much more in the negative outcome than they do the positive outcome. We have more faith in the negative than the positive, and consciousness can create all of it.
Yeah, for me, it's where the attention goes.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to have my attention on the pain or the negative or, oh my God, the woes of life. Actually, when you were saying, Linda, about your daily affirmations, I've done that for years and I do that in most of my daily life and it just works. I don't know why it does, but it just does. And so in illness for me, that just sense of knowing, that inner wisdom, that inner whatever it is, just kind of holds me and it's okay. It's like that's healing in itself, Yeah. Anyway.
And what I hear, and I just want to check this out, is because language sometimes trips us up, is that there's a difference. Oh, I just saw that little girl in her bath. That is so cute. Hi, sweetheart. There is such a difference between an affirmation that comes from the intellect and a declaration that comes from the soul, a deep knowing that comes from the soul. So a deep knowing that I am radiant health, that the godliness that I am cannot be sick. Mm-hmm. It does not know sickness. For me, it's extraordinary. It's just extraordinary to know that I can touch that feeling and that energy, even though my body may be flailing around and struggling a little bit. And that's a really beautiful thing.
Hi, Mum. Well done. There was a wonderful lady I remember once at the conference. I haven't been to the conference for a lot of years, and I believe she died now. But you'll probably know her name, Linda. She was in stage 4 cancer, and she spoke on the main stage.
Her name was Wendy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She brought the house down. you know, to see somebody who was on the way out, standing there looking vibrant, like you were describing Sid to me, she looked vibrant. She looked enthused about her very existence now. You know, like, right here, I'm here. I'm not dead, I'm here. And she was kind of like, she was very present. She wasn't living in the future, she was in the present. She wasn't trying to be anywhere else. She wasn't trying to, she was here now and she was all right. And that came across, that spoke like 1,000 speakers. It was like, just have somebody who was so physically ill, but so psychologically well. Dan, you've got your hand raised, mate.
It was actually me.
Hi, Julie.
So when we came home, I had a lot of anxiety. And you said the word control, and it's not being in control, someone else driving. Yeah, I've lived a lot of my life thinking I was in control, you know, and quite driven and going places, and sort of like pushed through and done what I've done, and quite successfully done it all. But this letting go, don't find that quite as easy. It's much easier to being driven, and yeah. I don't know if you can speak to that idea of control a bit more.
Well, I'll do my best. And so there's a thought in there. There's a very powerful thought. There are a couple of very powerful thoughts. One of them, we'll just stay with one. One of them is, I am not in control, or I am uncomfortable when I'm not in control. And that's coming from the human thought system. That's coming from the personal thought system. You know what Sid talked about, how there really are two thought systems. There's a personal thought system and an impersonal thought system, or a personal thought system and a divine thought system. They're the same mind being used differently. It's really one thought system, but it kind of helps our brain get a handle on it if we see it as two, personal and impersonal. So the personal thought system says, is hooked on a belief. I am needing to be in control. I am uncomfortable with being out of control.
Is that ego?
Yeah, that's another good word for it. Yeah. But what is the nature of God?
I don't know.
That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for your own personal exploration, your own personal introspective, reflective exploration around what is the divine nature that you are. Because when you go there, what does that become? What does that thought become? Could be anything. Like for me, what it comes up is, I am perfectly safe.
I am okay.
Beautiful. Because God is okay. God is profoundly okay. God does not know non-okayness. Mind, love, God, spirit, creator, whatever you want to call that beautiful source that Sid pointed to, gives itself to us and says, you want to go ahead and create non-okayness? You want to go ahead and create needing to be in control? Have at it. Enjoy it. But that's a judgment. That's a judgment against me, God, who I am, which you also are. That is a judgment. That is a small God, small g, that I am not safe and I need to be in control. And, you know, one of the things that Sid said somewhere, and it's on a video, it's on audio tape. I think I don't know if I talked about this. I don't remember. I've had so many talks recently. I'm not sure what I say from one to the next, but there was one place where he says, when you see thought, when you see personal thought, you see that thought is a ticker tape that's moving through your head all the time, and you really start to see the nature of it. Then you have achieved $1 million understanding. But when you understand God, when you see mind, the true nature of mind, then your understanding is priceless. Mm-hmm. So I just don't struggle a huge amount with anxiety, but the kind that just destabilizes you or paralyzes you. But do I have moments where I just get aware that there's a tightening, that something has happened that's probably stirred up some very deep invisible thinking in me, where I feel like the way I notice anxiety for myself is I stop breathing.
You hold your breath there.
Which is not a really good thing, right?
It's not going to help.
I used to have a really friend who was just loved me dearly, and at times she would say to me, "Linda, breathe," because I just breath hold, and of course when I breath hold, the anxiety just gets really bad. I don't have that so much anymore, but I will have these little times when I'll notice that, oh, I'm not breathing again. I've just kind of gotten arrested. Some invisible thought that I can't put my finger on. That's why I love when Sid said, don't try to analyze it, because you're probably not going to find it. And what you do find is probably just a lie anyway.
And I got annoyed with myself because I knew it was being made up. I was annoyed with myself. I was like, shut up.
But what I have recently especially found helpful is, oh yeah, there it is again. I'm judging God.
Judging what is.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
what is yeah.
And so if I can in that moment forgive myself, have compassion for myself, oh yeah, I just did that really human thing. And got into judging my God nature. I thought I knew better for a moment than that beautiful source intelligence behind life. There's something so beautiful about the feeling of that. And then I'm right back to peace and calm.
Thank you. I like that, especially the last bit where you sort of see that, like you say, you're thinking you know better. And that's quite crazy. So yeah, that's quite crazy that I ever could know better. Yeah.
And I think I just feel like there's something so important about us having compassion for ourselves, that these judgments that we get against ourselves, if you want to prefer to call them thoughts that you have against yourself, we come by them so innocently. I think being a grandma and spending a lot of time with little people has just like opened my eyes even further to how innocent that all is. I see like I remember once my little grandson, the 6-year-old, who I just love that little boy so dearly. And he was outside and he just wanted to make friends. And he walked up to a group of boys who were a little bit older, probably like he was probably about 5 and they were more like 7. 8. And they sized him up and they knew right away, he's a little guy, right? So this beautiful little boy walked up to them and said, "Hi, my name is Luke Wan. I want to be your friend." And they shut him down. Just shut him down. That's a really silly thing to say. And they walked away. And I watched his face crumble, just crumble. Like, I don't understand. And you could just see him fold into himself and start to judge himself. I'm not good enough.
He came up with something that made sense to him, but to explain what had just happened.
Yeah. Yeah, just the innocent children sort of going around in their world and all being at different levels of consciousness and having different realities. And thankfully, Grandma was there to sort of pull him aside and chat him up a little bit and love him up a little bit and talk to him the way I talk to him about the principles. But I just see that, I can't be there 24/7 as he's motivating his way through life, nor can his parents. He's just motivate his way through life, and he's going to get a lot of thought. And that happens to all of us. So these judgments that we get, that we feel in anxiety and depression or whatever, they're just kind of unavoidable. But when we see them and we don't make a big deal out of them, and we can acknowledge them, have compassion for them. And the thing that I just think is really sweet is thought is so easy to drop. You just drop it. We're just naturally dropping thoughts all the time, right? I don't think I know I've not shared this in this group. I haven't shared in a while, but I remember back when I was first learning the principles, and man, I fought the understanding. I mean, some of you are probably way ahead of me in that. I fought it hard for 2 years. And I was in my car and I was listening to, I actually was listening to a tape on the neurosciences. But as I was listening to this neuroscience guy talking, I was thinking about, gosh, I'm starting to share these principles. And people are asking me all the time, Dr. Pettit, how do you let go of a thought? And I would be up there on the stage with Bill, and I'd be like, I have no idea how you let go of a thought. So I'd say, Bill, I'll let you take that one. So I'm listening to this tape on thinking, and this guy is talking about, how many tens of thousands of thoughts we have in a day. And this was so funny. So I'm thinking about that. Oh, wow. Because I don't remember the number. It was probably overinflated because neuroscience has then suggested it's not quite as many as he said. I want to say he said about 90,000 thoughts a day. And I hear this little voice in my head, but it came across like a guy from New Jersey. And you guys you're not from New Jersey, but they have a really distinct sort of accent that, is really different. And I hear this like crusty like voice in my head that says, yeah, doll. So pull over and write down the last 20 thoughts you had. And I went, what? I actually did. I pulled over in a coal yard, and I got out a piece of paper and a pencil, and I tried to write down the last 20 thoughts I had, and I couldn't. I thought, that's interesting. And so then the voice kind of chuckled, like laughed at me and said, so write down the last 10. I tried to write down the last 10, but then I realized that as I tried to write down the last 10, I'd already had 20 more. And it was like, oh, bingo. We are masters of letting go of thought. It's just flowing through us all the time. That's the nature of it. Masters of just letting go of it. And when we just cooperate with that natural flow We don't get hooked up on or snared by any particular thought. The experience just flows through us. It flows through us one thought at a time. But I was actually a master of trying to hold on to a particular thought and infuse it with a huge amount of energy. Sid, on one of the very early audio tapes, actually, this is on an audio tape, one of the real early ones, tells the story that when I heard myself in it so much, he says, he's telling about how he and one of his buddies at the paper mill where he worked, or the mill, one, I don't know if it was a paper mill or the welding factory, went to lunch. They're standing in the lunch line, he and his buddy, and they're walking up to get their food, and he gets up to the place in the line where it's his turn to get his food, and he says to the woman behind the counter, what's on tap for today? And she said, well, there's chili or there's fish. And Sid says, oh, I'll have the chili, please. That sounds really good. So she serves him up a bowl of chili. And the next he takes his chili, and the next man behind Sid, his friend, gets up and says, well, I'll have the same as Sid had. I'll have chili too. And the lady behind the counter said, well, I'm sorry, sir. Sid got the last bowl of chili. All that's left is fish. And the man said, but I don't want fish. And the lady said, well, that's all that's left is fish. And so she dishes up the fish. And so all the way to the table, he's grousing to Sid about the fact that he got fish instead of chili. And Sid says he spends the whole lunch upset about the fact that he got fish instead of chili. But then said what was really hysterical is they get in the line the next day for lunch. And the first thing the man says to Sid is, I know what's going to happen today. I'm going to get the fish instead of the chili. And I so related to that. I thought, yeah, I'm like that. I'm like that in my head all the time with my thinking. I have a thought about something. It passes. If I just let it go the way thoughts do, it's just gone. But I got to hold on to it. I got to chew on it. I keep it going days and days on end. And that can create low-grade chronic distress, can also create mental illness. Pervasive chronic mental illness. And it's so innocent.
And it's so simple.
You know, that man in the line with Sid was listening from a place of consciousness or a place of being, a state of mind, whatever you want to call it, a powerful belief that things don't work out for me. Listen from a different state of mind, a different level of consciousness, a different beingness, that life is perfect and I enjoy whatever comes my way, and you're gonna create a completely different experience. Isn't that marvelous?
Thank God. Thank God it's that way around. Imagine if it was. Imagine if it actually was the way we sometimes think it is. It's like, well, that's why life becomes so frigging difficult, isn't it? It's like trying to change my family's ideas, and trying to change them, and trying to get this to work like that, and trying to orchestrate that in the world, and it's shite. It's like, of course it's difficult. Reorientate yourself, and it all falls into place. Thank God it was so simple all along. But thanks for the fun ride whilst we forget.
I like Lisa's strap yourself in and prepare for the ride.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to think, isn't it? We can have no matter what happens outside of us, we can have a miraculous life. We can have a miraculous, mystical, magical life.
It always is. It just always is. We just don't notice. I think that was one of the things. A man came to do 4 days with us, and he said to me, he said, "Dave, look, I only came in on a recommendation." And he said, "I didn't look into you at all." He said, "It's day 3. I thought you'd have started. We've got some problems we want to sort out. I thought we might have started talking about these problems by now." I said, "All right." So I asked him a question. I said, "What is a problem? What's a problem? What is a problem itself? What is it?" And he sat back. He had massive brown eyes to this lad, biggest brown eyes. Got really pretty eyes actually. And he sat back and he went quiet for about 10, 15 seconds. And he said, his answer, which he came back with, was, "It's a thought, isn't it?" I said, "It is." I said, "Problems are created from thought, yeah." And he said, I said to him, "We're actually helping you with every problem you come up with for the rest you come up against for the rest of your life." And he had him. And then later on he said, "Well, what do you want me to do with this knowledge? What do you want me to do with this? What do you want me to do, Dave? You know, what do you want me to do?" And the only thing that came to me at that time was, I just want you to notice. All I want you to do is notice. That's how it is. I just want you to notice it. Because what we're pointing to is already happening. We already are this miraculous, divine, spiritual creator being. You know, we already are creating life via life that we are, that life. We are creating our lives. I just want you to notice. As I always say, people are so mesmerized by their experience. They're so mesmerized by it. But then one of the questions that I never ever asked myself was, what is life? If I'm trying to change life, and I'm desperately trying to change my life, I never stopped for a moment to ask the question, what is life? And I think that was the thing I've been thinking recently in my inspired times, newly inspired times again. One of the things I heard Sid say on that video, and it was, when I first listened to Sid first time, I was lucky because I didn't know about Sid. I didn't know people had transformations via Sid. I was really lucky because I didn't have any expectations. I didn't have anything to compare myself against and go, well, I'm still not getting it. I'm still not good enough. I was just blindsided by something he said. And one of the things that I heard him say was, what I discovered is that life is a psychological experience. That's simple. Now, it's that simple, but to this day, I don't know what the psyche, the soul, love, God, I don't have a thought, consciousness, mind. I don't know what any of it is, which leaves me in this space of awe. And I'm perpetually reflecting upon a miracle, as far as I'm concerned. But it's like, to start to see the simplicity of that fact. If it's a psychological experience, then it's thought, then it's consciousness. And when I saw the truth of it, when I actually realized, well, it is true. And one of the ways I could see it was logically true was that everybody did have a different, they appeared to have a different experience of life to me. And I assumed that theirs must look as real to them as mine does to me. I assume that must be true. It's the only thing I could do. I assume that's true. Then I'm amazing. Then they're amazing. Then I'm all right. Freaking hell, I'm all right. Shit, I'm all right. I am magical. I am mystical. I am all of the above. We always have been. The very thing that everybody goes searching for in this spiritual journey is the very thing that goes looking for it. The very thing that sets out on the search is the very thing that it ultimately discovers. Shit. I was there all along. I love that about Sid's message, and I feel like in my mind, he's one of the simplest articulators of truth I've come across to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when I listen to Dave talk, because there's a bubbling kind of joy and like in the mystery that just, just comes up to the surface in him, that I very much feel and relate to. And I will say this for me, because I think people can get discouraged a bit, that seeing the principles for me has brought an ease to my life, but it hasn't necessarily made my life easy. That, like I think about times like the last time Bill and I moved, we moved from Michigan to Arizona, which is across this big, beautiful United States by several thousand miles. And in order to make that move, we had to get licensed in a new state. We had to buy a new home. We had to move all these things. We had to move out of a place. We had to do a whole hell of a lot of things that were hard. They took a lot of time, and they weren't necessarily fun things. If there's someone out there who can see jamming a moving truck full of furniture fun, it's not me. But thankfully, because of seeing the principles, we did all of that with ease. There was an ease to it, a feeling that we were being guided through it and just sort of flowing from one next thing to the other. And that's beautiful. That's what I think of when I think about the mystical side of life, is that it's ease. That there is a beautiful ease to it. I think Marie pointed toward that. Just flows through you, even in times when things aren't necessarily easy. And I should probably scoot off because my little boys are going to be here any minute. It's been lovely to spend part of my Sunday with you. Thank you.
Thank you, love. Thank you so much, Linda. And again, thanks so much to thank you so much for again supporting Jenny and I. Thank you both for supporting Jenny and I, and your kindness that you show us, and we know you don't just show it to us, you show it to many other people. Thank you so much on behalf of Jenny and I.
You're welcome. Thank you. Lots of love, you all.
Loads of love. Take care. Loads of love, everyone.